I took a wrong turn while driving through the New Mexico desert at night, and from that moment on, nothing felt real anymore. The street lights flickered green, there were no signs, no cell signal, and a gas station stood empty except, I swear, something inside was watching me. I never used to believe in supernatural crap, ghost stories, cursed places, time loops. All of it sounded like the kind of stuff you make up to scare kids at a campfire, but something about that night on Duskwind Road broke whatever certainty I had left in the normal, because everything started the moment my engine died 20 miles outside of Silver Ridge, right where the old highway turns into a dirt trail lined with crumbling rocks and rusted out signs pointing nowhere, and I remember checking my gas gauge, seeing it was half full, and still the truck sputtered like it de-choked on something invisible. The lights dimmed, the radio cut to static, and I was just left sitting there in pitch black silence with nothing but the whine of the wind and the hum of something low and far away, like a generator buried under the sand. And when I stepped out to check under the hood, the air felt wrong, like the temperature had dropped 20 degrees in a second. Dry desert heat traded for something colder, heavier, like a storm was coming, but the sky was clear and wide open with a full moon hanging low and swollen, and that's when I saw the first light, a pale blue shimmer just down the road, hovering a few feet above the ground, flickering like it was alive, and I told myself it was probably someone with a lantern or maybe a headlight from another truck, but the closer I looked, the more it danced, like it wanted me to follow, and something in my chest twisted because I knew I shouldn't. I knew it, but I took a step anyway, then another, and before I realized it I was 50 feet from my truck and the light was still ahead, drawing me like a fishhook in my ribs, and that's when I saw her, the girl standing barefoot in the dirt, her hair long and tangled like it hadn't been washed in weeks, a pale dress torn at the hem and her eyes locked on mine like she'd been waiting for me. And without speaking she turned and walked toward the light, slow and deliberate, and I followed. Because part of me felt like I didn't have a choice, like something had clicked into place and I was just playing out a scene that had been written long before I showed up. And as we walked deeper into the desert, the wind stopped, the stars flickered, and the light ahead split into three, each floating in a different direction, and she finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper, "You have to pick one, but choose wrong and you won't come back." And I looked at her, confused, ready to ask what the hell she meant, but she was gone, vanished into the dark like she'd never been there, and all I could hear now was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears and the soft hum of those lights waiting for me to choose. I don't know what possessed me to choose the center light. Maybe it felt like the safest bet, the most balanced path, or maybe I was just desperate to end the silence that had grown so thick it felt like it was pressing into my skull. But the moment I stepped toward it, the ground beneath my feet changed, like the sand had turned to ash, and every step I took left a print that glowed faintly for a few seconds before fading away, and the light didn't get brighter as I moved closer, it stayed just ahead, teasing me with glimpses of something human-shaped moving in and out of view behind it, like someone was walking backward just fast enough to stay hidden, and the air began to fill with a high-pitched hum that reminded me of power lines crackling during a storm, only it was layered with something else too, like distant screaming underwater or voices talking just out of reach. And then came the smell like ozone, burnt hair, and something metallic, and suddenly I realized the stars had gone out completely, not a single one visible in the sky above, as if a blanket had been thrown over the entire world. And I turned around to look for my truck, my footprints, anything that would prove I hadn't wandered too far, but there was nothing, just endless dark and a desert that had turned into a flat gray plain. And then I saw the town. It just appeared ahead of me like it had always been there, a small cluster of buildings with warped rooftops and windows that flickered with dim yellow light, but nothing moved, no cars, no sound, just that same buzz in the air and a deep dread crawling under my skin, and I told myself I'd find someone, get help, figure out what the hell was going on, but the moment I crossed into the town, everything shifted, the light behind me vanished and the road I'd come down was gone, replaced by an alley that smelled of mold and dust and old gasoline, and I swear to God the buildings weren't the same anymore, they were crooked, windows were bricked up or shattered, and the doors seemed too narrow, too tall, and I heard something scuttling behind a dumpster, fast, like claws on concrete, but when I turned, there was nothing, just shadows that felt too thick to be normal, and then a voice whispered in my ear, so close it made my neck twitch, "You chose wrong," and I spun around, fists clenched, heart in my throat, but again, no one, nothing, just that feeling of being watched, surrounded, like the town itself was alive and playing with me, waiting to see what I'd do next, and the only thing that kept me moving was the faint glow of a sign at the end of the alley, swinging in wind that didn't exist, reading, "Welcome to Duskwind, you'll never leave the same." I don't know why I walked toward that sign, maybe because it was the only thing glowing, maybe because standing still felt like an invitation for whatever was watching to finally pounce, but the moment I passed under it, a loud metallic clang echoed behind me, like a gate slamming shut, and the air got denser, heavier, like I was breathing through fabric soaked in fear, and the buildings on either side of the alley seemed to inch closer together, groaning softly like old bones grinding, and then there was a scream, high and human and close, but no one was there, just that flickering street lamp above a rusted diner that looked like it hadn't served food since the Cold War, and I walked inside hoping for answers, even company, but instead I found a room filled with mannequins dressed like 1950s waitresses and patrons, all seated, all still, except their heads were turned slightly toward me, like they'd just noticed I arrived, and I backed out slowly, heart slamming so hard I could barely hear over it, but outside wasn't better. There was a fog rolling in now, thick and fast, swallowing everything in sight except one path lit by those same green streetlights from before, and they pulsed like a heartbeat, leading me toward a church on a hill that hadn't been there seconds ago, and with every step the bells rang louder, offbeat and broken, until I reached the top and saw the doors were already open like something had been expecting me, and the second I stepped in, the temperature dropped to freezing and all the pews were filled with people whose faces were blurred, constantly shifting, and the priest at the pulpit had no eyes, just sockets filled with swirling black mist, and when he spoke it was in my voice, saying words I didn't remember speaking, about guilt and sins I hadn't committed, at least I thought I hadn't, and then the walls of the church started melting, revealing a mirror underneath, stretching floor to ceiling, and in it I saw not just myself, but versions of me. Hundreds, some crying, some screaming, some grinning like lunatics, and the reflection closest to the glass mouthed the words, "You never left," and when I touched the surface, it rippled and pulled me in, not physically, but everything went white and I woke up on the road again, right in front of that same gas station, the neon lights flickering, the air dead still, but this time there were no stars, no truck, just my reflection in the glass window looking back at me, and something was off. My eyes were darker, older maybe, and my reflection smiled even though I didn't. Then it turned and walked away from the inside like it lived there now, like I was the outsider, and no matter how hard I banged on the glass, it wouldn't let me in, and now I walk this town alone, the street lights never go out, the buildings never change, and no one ever answers when I scream, and every night I see my old self driving past, headlights sweeping over me like I'm a ghost he doesn't recognize, and I finally understand Duskwind doesn't trap you with walls, it traps you with time, looping your choices until the town owns them, until you forget who made them in the first place.